Your pardon, but we have to go back to the summit where the representative of Belize is addressing the plenary, and we'll go back to you, okay? Let's go.
Okay.
On behalf of the people and government of Belize, you were so very instrumental and absolutely indispensable in Belize's long struggle for the right to self-determination and independence over 40 years ago. We would not have done it without you. Nelson Mandela once wrote that when the Cubans went to Africa, it was the first time a country had come from another continent, not to take away, but to help Africans to achieve their freedom. That is the Cuba we know. A country that gives beyond what it can afford. All you do is give and give to your brother and sister countries, whether it's scholarships or doctors or nurses or medicine or sports or culture or technology. You just keep on giving, and we in Belize and all over the South can never stop thanking you. You have a special place in the hearts of people all over the world. Heads of government, ministers, ambassadors, and all other participants, a very pleasant good evening. And it's an awesome evening when over 100 members of the G77 plus China can gather and agree on a way forward that prioritizes the use of science and technology and innovation for our collective development. But for meaningful development to take place, the existing international financial institutions and the developed world must reassess cruel and unfair classifications, give flesh to the world when it comes to pledges of grants and assistance for the developing world. Action must follow words. I mean, how much longer will we continue to see the damning and ominous effects of the climate crisis before the developed countries act with alacrity and decisiveness and instill a purpose that's required when our very existence is under threat? I mean, it's not like they don't know this. They know this. They speak this, but they don't do this. It is clear that we, the leaders of the developing countries, often understand the issues, crave the solutions, know the best practices, but individually, many times we are not able to afford those solutions. This topic is not new to us. The framework for the application of science, technology, and innovation already exists via the Paris Agreement and the Global Digital Compact. Much has been accomplished through UNESCO, UNCTAD, UNIDO, and others too numerous to name, and we know more can be achieved with efficacy. But that's the feel-good part of it. It's uncomfortable for me to be here discussing in comfort this laudable idea of us working towards a more equitable world where citizens have the opportunity to innovate, thrive, and add value to their communities, when right at this very moment, there are arbitrary, unilateral, coercive, and immoral blockades on this here country and too many others. These are barriers to development designed to sow rot at the roots. The question is, what will we do about this continued designation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism and the eternal embargo imposed on the people of Cuba? The nefarious blockade against the people of Cuba are an affront to the humanitarian assistance offered across the world by this one small country. We've heard what Nelson Mandela wrote. Cuba deserves to be glorified and to be allowed to exercise its sovereignty, given its space to breathe, to continue to practice its genius that it has so willingly and magnanimously shared with the world. The world has seen a difference between the beautiful growth and development of a Cuba with somewhat relaxed measures and the present one overburdened with increasingly hardened and vile measures designed to inflict total pain and suffering on 11 million of the world's finest people. The losses in revenue are estimated to be in the billions. The losses caused by shortened lives and dramatically declining quality of life are incalculable. The embargo and wicked designation of state sponsor of terrorism must end. We meet at a deadly time for our peoples all over the developing world. A buffet of external and internal calamities breathe down our throats. The skyrocketing costs of living, mixed with crushing poverty, mixed with perennial low and no income has been a deadly cocktail for our collective people of the South. It's like we're a downhill march to perdition. It's like the end is nigh and we can't really do anything about it. And I don't believe that. We can, but we must do it together. And that is why this summit is all the more heartwarming and encouraging. We must do it together, not separately, together. I grudgingly concede that we must put on record our demand for greater representation in global decision-making, the need to close the gender-digital divide, the need for the fulfillment of pledged assistance for the development of the South, and the need to confront the brain drain of our specialized human resources. Although we know that historically they have not heeded these calls, but we put on record because it's the right thing to do. And the leaders of the North say they're about the right things, but perhaps they may surprise us and oblige us this time, this one time. But if they don't, and they probably won't, we have ourselves, all 134 of us. And we have the awesomely brilliant example of Cuba, who has risen to miraculous heights in science and technology and biotechnology, despite the wickedly cruel blockade and the classification of a state that sponsors terrorism. It's indicative of what we can do, what we can be, if we harness all we have together. Imagine if we join all the brilliant energies and genius in our midst and galvanize us as one and try to bring ourselves up together and not wait on anyone else to do it for us. We do it for ourselves. We've seen what these people have done to Haiti for the last 220 years. We've seen what they've done to Cuba for the last 60 years. It defies our logic. It defies our right thinking. It defies our Christian and Islamic principles. It just smacks of racism and beliefs of entitlement and a contravention of the human aspiration to be independent, to be free, to exercise the right to self-determination. We've seen this mindset prevail over hundreds of years of slavery, while millions of lives were senselessly destroyed by this genocide against our people. That is what we are fighting. This tendency of the developed world to claim hegemony and to want to maintain it at any cost. And with that comes this sense of entitlement, that somehow this elevation, this classification as the developed world is a gift from God, a modern day papal decree. We cannot wait on a reversal of that mindset. We must do it ourselves, but we must do it together. It is together our ancestors were able to endure and survive 300 years of slavery. It was together we were able to endure and survive 150 years of colonialism. But now we must deepen and widen that togetherness, because as one country we can't, but together, all 134 of us developing countries, we can. We can close the gap. We can lift ourselves up. Individually, we all have some great ideas and technological practices. Bring those together in the spirit of sharing, a la Cuba and Venezuela, and we have a bona fide galaxy of genius. It's great to put it on record, the need for the developed world to aid the developing world with equitable access, but very mindful of the historical reality. We must do for ourselves, or else the time is now. Thank you very much.
We were listening to the statements of the Deputy Prime Minister of Belize, Cordel Hyde, who was speaking of the importance of unity to reach the reality of a more equitable world.